This is why I think today there's divorce around the globe, and first of all, most rampant among Africans. And I will give my perspective into this thing and explain why I have personally felt that it is increasingly difficult for we Africans, young people, to get married and stay married. You see, any problem you see in a generation has a history. It has a time it began. And that is what has happened to the African man over the years. What the African family suffer or what the African marriage institution suffer has its roots from colonial interference and even the neo-colonial interference. In fact, from my own perspective, the activities of the globalists during the colonial era have not been able to interrupt or interfere with the African man's family structure and marriage. So what happens? These globalists have the firm view that the world is too populated and that there is need for population control and reduction, because they have the view that the resources available for humanity are not much, are not enough, and so there is need to control the population of the world, beginning with Africa. So because of this their view, they have done everything possible to see that Africans, that one, they reduce the population of Africa, control birth and death rate in so many ways. Now, if you want to know why I said we have, if you want to know the reasons why I'm of the view that there is so much divorce and why there is divorce, this, and just stay to the end of this video. So this is what happened during the colonial eras. A lot of things went down. One of the things that went down was that during the colonial eras, the main target was the African man. Now, what did they discover when they came into Africa? That the African traditional marriage, or the African marriage generally, whether be it Christian, for those that have become Christian as of that time, was a spiritual institution. And this institution was so spiritual that the man was literally seen as the priest. The man calls the shot, everything is moving. So they thought, we need these people's resource. We need to control them. What do we do? They changed the African man, took him through the Atlantic Ocean, made him farm in plantations. That did not deter the population of Africa. In fact, they realized that even if you enslave an African man and chain him and his wife and his children, there was still a structure, even in slavery. They realized that though you are in charge as a slave master, but the man you have chained together with his children and his wife is still in charge of that institution as far as that marriage is concerned. Some of them thought of how far they could interfere with that process. Some slave masters decided to harass the women sexually or the children sexually, all to break the spirit of the African man. After a long while, these guys realized that as far as the African man is concerned, even on the plantation farm, the little he's making is still for his family. And he was still seen as the savior of the family. The wife solely relied on him to look for their escape route or to buy their freedom or fight for their freedom. These globalists did not relax, because the idea of slavery and all that was not just resource, it's not just to harness resources, was to reduce and control the African population. So they realized that the man in an African home, as far as he is concerned, he will continue to provide for his family. He will continue to protect, and he will continue to be seen as the god of that family. As far as that man is alive, that family will not look up to anybody. They tried as far as removing the man. As far as there is still a chain of communication, the African man, in his ideal situation, was still in charge of his family, was still in control of anything called marriage, and the African man was there. So what did they need to do? Because the idea of, in fact, most of the major idea was to control resource, control population, because that belief that there is too much population on the planet has not been today. And let me tell you, whether you feel like those who colonized us are dead, those who lived on with their ideas are still here. In fact, the ones that are still alive are still more, they are far more dangerous than the one we had during the colonial era. So everything that they did then, the African family, the African man was unmoved. He still loved his family and still believed he was the sole protector and sole provider of this family. So what did this guy need to do? One, they changed their focus. They realized that as far as the African family was concerned, and it is the man you are fighting, you are not going to achieve anything, because as of when they were first focusing on the man as the pillar of the family to remove him, they realized that his wife would still listen to him. She was still with him to help him fight through. They realized that no matter the kind of knowledge they sell, the African man was not moved. Whether religious knowledge, whether whatsoever kind of knowledge they tried to sell, as far as marriage was concerned, the African man was not moved. He believed in his core duties. What did they do? When after fighting the man with little or no success, they gave up. Because even after the colonial era, or before, during the colonial era, when the focus was still on fighting and removing the man from the African marriage institution, African women still gave birth to so many children. Even with during slave period, these people still believe in their husband. They still gave birth to 2, 4, 7 children, some 10. And the idea of putting the man through that pain was to see that probably he will succumb to the pressure of just having one or giving up. But even during that era and after, the African homes continue giving birth to so many children. These guys went to the drawing table or to execute the second plan. Since removal of the African man will not yield results in population control, they had to change their focus. And what did they do? They changed their focus to the African woman. And immediately they changed their focus to the African woman, they succeeded. What did they do? They realized that in the African structure of marriage, there was a hierarchy. And that hierarchy and order was so strong. The institution was so strong that because the institution depended on that hierarchy for survival. So that hierarchy, first of all, since the man has refused to bend and yield to the pressures of the Western and the globalist agenda, what do we do? First is to destroy that hierarchy and order in the African family. What do? The family was only governed by a specific gender and specific persons and ruled by that same person. The man was the king over his wife and his children. He ruled his house. I know why I'm using that word, ruled the house, because at a point they had to present the African man like a brutal ruler of his house. So now what did they do? First of all, since the family depends on a single person, the family head, to guide, protect, and control, what did they do? Now, what they needed to do is now, what they simply needed to do was to now introduce another order. Sorry, they introduced another order. What is that? They told the woman she and the man are the same, that they have become equal, and that the African man was a brutal leader. At some point where we are getting to now, they have gotten to a point where they are telling the African woman that The African man is not intelligent enough to lead. So they tell you, that is why they tell you that out of the leaders, that women, the female ones are doing better than the male ones. That one is another political conversation and discussion for another day. I just want to focus on the African family. So what did they do? If you really introduce gender equality, you can't have two kings in the palace. It has never been done. So the African woman sees her husband now, or the man she's married to, as somebody she cannot take orders from. Rather, that they have to co-rule the system. And immediately they introduced that, struggle started. The struggle started. The African man began to look for solution. Now, immediately they introduced gender equality. If the man had wanted to have 7 children, for example, during the eras of gender equality, it was like, no, we can only have 4, 3, 5. Now, at least they have succeeded in controlling that population by the reduction of 2. They came to this era where they said, no, everybody can marry who he wants. In fact, they make divorce look normal. And how did they do it? They made the African man look like a man of the Stone Age. The African man is not civilized, because immediately the woman bought the idea that there was something as gender equality. That you can be gender equal in the political space and the social space, you still come into your marriage that you still want to be equal. And remember, in the initial system they met, the man calls the shots, and the system was strong and working. And remember, their agenda is to control population and reduce population. So now, what they are succeeding in doing is that to destroy the order and introduce another order, saying that in a kingdom there are 2 kings, and that the 2 kings can live together and rule together. That's how these guys captured our women. The next thing they did was to bring these women out. I put it to you, and I want to say to you that ask the majority of the women in school today. In fact, those that are not even educated with just primary school certificate or secondary certificate, they will tell you that, no, me, I just want to have 2 kids. Me, I just want to have 1 child. It's okay. If you check those people that are saying that, apart from these people that were born from 2000 upward, if you check those people that are saying, let's say from 1999 backward, down there about, majority are coming from the family of 6, 7. Now, remember, our parents are coming from the family of 7, 15. Let me tell you, in the next 3, 4 decades, some people will get married and go and remove their womb. That they just want companionship and they don't want to have children. That's where we are heading to, because the idea is to make sure that the African population remain in check and in control. Remember, life expectancy have continually reduced in Africa, even though we have more sophistication and education today. Ask yourself, what is causing it? What is the cause? Now we go to hospitals now, but are we even living more than 50, 60? And you don't ask yourself, when we give birth to our babies, they are asking us to bring them for some certain kind of treatment and all that. We are eating so many things. I don't even want to go there, because the next is provide proof. This is a false information. Please let everybody believe what they want to believe. But this one is so practical that immediately the woman was removed from African marriage. That was the end of the marriage. Now, if a woman is married to you, they have done more. They have gone as far as, one, telling the woman that the African man is British. They have removed her from the African marriage system that made Africans live peacefully. Now, the idea of having peace in marriage is not even guaranteed, because daily they keep pushing out the narrative that the African man is a cheat. The African man is what. The African man is he cannot have male privileges while we are at home. Initially, the man could provide what he has and there will be peace. What they did was brought issue of gender equality, create unnecessary expectation through social media and popularization of the idea that there are things that the man must do if he wants to remain the head of the family. So being the head of the family does not even come as a natural order anymore. It has to be negotiated based on who has more resource. So it means if your wife have more resource, they should call the shot, irrespective of how the marriage is. So now population has drastically reduced because a woman who would have ordinarily given birth to 5, 6 before, what we only give birth to 2 or 1 today. Now the consequences of that is what we have suffered today. You see single mothers up and down because when these people create unnecessary expectations in our women head, they go here 2 days the woman is out, 3 days she's out, and then what you see is single mother trend. Now there is even a statistic one of my friends quoted recently that women have been providing at least 34% statistics have shown. I said the African man has been providing before now 100%. How did we have? Didn't we have paternity fraud those days, even in olden days? Confirmed paternity fraud. Was it a big deal? Yes, it was. How was it handled? Sometimes the child is returned to the original father, or the woman is allowed to go and marry the person who is the father of the child. Did that stop African men from providing? No. But now that there is an analysis, statistics they are putting and shoving to the necks of our women that 34% of women are now breadwinners. 34, yes, you choose to be breadwinners because if the institutions had remained and you had not listened and you had stood your ground like the African man did during the pre-colonial era and colonial eras, even after would have not had that. But immediately this system captured the African woman, the whole thing is destroyed. We have no families anymore. I would have really loved to keep this very, very short. But basically, the reason why the African woman is completely destroyed is because of the woman has given in to the Western pressure. Now, after the struggle and battle for single mothers and all that, now we are back to Sodom and Gomorrah now. The same people who talked about repugnancy test, good conscience, moral, what do they call it in law? There is this phrase that is talk about good conscience, morality, and all that. I'm not telling you that two men could marry themselves, two women could marry themselves, and we have bought the idea. And what do you have? Any woman who wants to stay married to a man now in social media, they will keep pushing the narrative to her that the African man is a cheat. He's not to be trusted. In fact, if you don't have money now, you can't even keep a woman at home. That's where we have gotten to. But I hope that we wake up to the realization that there are people out there that don't want us to stay married and give birth to children. They will wish if the whole African population would declare that they were gay, so that in the next 50 years, since we have become so foolish, a lot of us would have been dead without offspring, and then they come and take over the resources because they are not interested in whatever you feel they have brought to you, gender equality, women in politics, uh, whatever, women emancipation. All those things are just pure globalist agendas, and once they get it done, they are done with the African man. You see, the African man has become weak now. Once he talks, he's seen as a violent person, so he keeps quiet. If a woman wants to walk out of a marriage today, even if she has offended the man, all she wants to do, all she needs to do is just come on social media and said, "I am facing domestic violence." Nobody will investigate what kind of domestic violence. So many women have lied and left their marriages on the grounds of domestic violence. He's not providing for me. Now we do not recognize that they have put in the women the lack of contentment. So whatever little you have, you can't even advance to even talk to a woman to even bring her to the fact that okay, we should have an understanding. This is who I am right now. So many things are missing. Now that has been introduced into the system to kick the African man out. See, divorces and broken home will continue until it's either Africa retraces herself and our women are able to realize what the globalists want to use them to achieve or what the globalists are already using them to achieve. Or we'll go this way and probably get destroyed unless God sent redemption for us. But if we think it is this Western culture that has vilified and insulted and downgraded the African man in the eyes of his family and his woman, that we save the African continent, it's unfortunate.